Today we will begin a series of discussions about the importance of prayer. For those who want to deeply appreciate the power of prayer, I recommend a book called Revealing Stories of Wanderers. Although this book is Christian, it deeply describes the prayer experience of a simple wanderer. That is, he is not some exhausted person with hierarchical spiritual knowledge, a beard, or a robe, and he is certainly not a monk. He can be described as a layperson, a parishioner, whose life has stripped him of everything except one thing, his faith and the pursuit of spiritual perfection. And so, while traveling through various churches, he hears the expression of unceasing prayer, but strangely enough, this entire religious machinery, all these vast underground churches and religious rituals cannot answer his question of what prayer is and why one should pray without ceasing. In a remarkable way, the elder, a spiritual teacher, explains it to him. And this elder does not appear on the television show Hour of the Pastor, nor does he possess any high-quality jewelry, gold, or gemstones. He is simply a spiritual person whom the wanderer finds somewhere in a spiritual environment, and the elder explains to him that this is unceasing communication with God. And although the Jesus prayer, Lord Jesus, forgive me, have mercy on me, is not considered the highest from a meditative perspective, even this prayer performs miracles. Why? Because any form of communication with God, unceasing communication with God, gives a person a certain inner divine connection. And so he describes his stages of prayer, how he moves through a prayerful state, through wandering in different lands and situations, essentially in poverty, without any goals for the past, present, or future, traversing an entire country, one could say, an empire, and prayer leads him to different people and various encounters. He describes his inner state of prayer, grace, faith, and a state of connection with God. And this indicates that he is constantly in yoga. Essentially, yoga is a connection. And what Indian yogis speak of is not different from those yogis who exist in Islam and Christianity. I mean the yogis, the ascetics. I am not talking about superficial believers, lay people, or some monastic individuals who follow certain external attributes. I speak of those who have achieved a connection with God, understanding through prayer, and prayer must be unceasing. Here, perhaps, lies the value of this book. We have just gone through this, yes, meaning he attains this state of unceasing prayer. And the path of the ancient potter is described in the Vedas. What is a potter? If you have ever seen a potter, he spins a wheel with his foot or hand, and on this wheel stands a tall pot, and there he shapes the pot. At some point, when the wheel is spinning, he lets go of his hands and looks at the pot, and then he returns to shaping this pot due to that inertia. So, prayer mindfulness meditation is like spinning the potter's wheel. When a person constantly remembers God, and the Bhagavad Gita says, always remember me, the best form of remembering God is through his name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. At the first stage, a person simply prays mechanically, but one must always remember that prayer is the name of God. It is God himself in sound form, the Lord Krishna himself. Different prayers to Vishnu and Shiva are different forms, different divine algorithms of truth, vibration, because God is also a multifaceted being existing on different vibrations. And so, upon receiving this holy name, we try to elevate our mind, heart, and consciousness, our soul, to this vibration. Therefore, what is prayer? It is not me. By repeating the name of God, I transform the material sound into God. No, it is I, by repeating this name, gradually coming to this subtle spiritual divine vibration. That is, the Lord, by his sweet will and by his nature, manifests through this vibration, through this sound to me when I establish the right relationship with him. And this indicates that prayer is not a mechanical process at all. It is an internal process, a conversation, a dialogue with God, calling upon his name. This is a very conscious process. So some people think that if I just repeat Om, this is a more impressionistic spiritual practice, but even within it, a person gradually passes through different components of the sacred sound Om, which resonates through various chakras and different subtle aspects of a person, ultimately arriving at the highest cosmic sound. That is, gradually through the lower, step by step, he becomes increasingly pure, cleansing his consciousness. Only ultimately at the highest level does he resonate with this divine vibration that vibrates throughout the universe. And when we speak of personal relationships with God, with his transcendent form Krishna, who is the source of love, beauty, and harmony, this is an even higher level. Therefore, it is important to remember that prayer is a very, very subtle process. And as a result, a very small number of people can become true prayer warriors, not because it is inaccessible to everyone, but simply because not everyone can reach this state immediately. And that is why it is said that it is necessary to communicate with the devotees, to engage with those who possess the art of prayer. And even among the devotees, there are very few such people. In Gaudiya Math, in our spiritual movement, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur did not like it when novice devotees immediately jumped to the stage of being a prayerful person. He showed them that, no friends, it won't happen so quickly. First, you must communicate, serve, and believe. By walking the spiritual path and gradually practicing prayer, dedicating your life to prayer, you will come to this perfection, but not immediately. Therefore, those who think, I will now cast everything aside and become a prayerful person, I have read 2 books. No, dear friends, it won't work that way. Why are we talking about prayer as the highest form now? Because in Kali Yuga, nothing exists that is higher than sincere prayer to the Almighty. In general, throughout the entire era, but especially in this era, because all other religious postulates and attributes, to be honest, they do not work. You see a huge number of temples and churches, but where are the saints? Ideally, there should be some statistics. In theory, if you go to church often enough, get cleansed, you should become holy and purified. But we see that this is not the case. On the contrary, we observe that in every religious tradition, those saints who have attained the highest understanding of God are the ones who are prayerful. Although in different religions we see that some were ascetics, some stood with their hands raised, and some did not eat or sleep. Nevertheless, if we seriously study the saints, we will see that they are prayerful people. And often among them, in the Vedic worldview, there are simple people, there are kings, there are women, and there are children. Regardless of external circumstances, they achieved enlightenment. Not only are there great sages, experts in sacred knowledge, and guardians of esoteric wisdom, authors of numerous systems of yoga and Vedic sciences, but even they always bowed before the prayerful, simple individuals who attained enlightenment through inner meditation, inner prayer, and spiritual practice. Therefore, it is said that if a person sincerely practices prayers, then through prayer, all spiritual knowledge comes to him. As a rule, we as preachers, as promoters of Vedic knowledge, study the Holy Scriptures. But we also know that if a person achieves sincere prayer, then all this sacred knowledge and understanding of everything comes to him in his heart. And he can now speak the truth not through concealment or complicated stories, but simply by stating the truth. And everything he says becomes the truth. Why? Because his heart is purified by prayer. In other words, prayer is essentially the connection, the resonance of the soul and God. And in this resonance, the soul reaches the maximum level of communication with God. That is, she acquires divine qualities and is capable of being in a constant inner exchange of feelings with God, because love is a feeling. There may be some words, I love you, but love itself is a feeling. And this feeling is devoid of pride, desire, ambition, or stamping one's foot. No, it is a deep inner feeling that a person cultivates. And this inner feeling indeed comes from the beloved to the beloved. This is a completely subtle component, which is why people do not understand what it is. They do not understand on a material level, which is why their material relationships deteriorate. However, on a spiritual level, love is a reward. It is neither a process nor a result. It is the ultimate goal, and it awakens gradually. Therefore, the Japanese also have the concept of sensual love, which is based on feelings, and true love, which is built over time. And we can indeed go through the level of sensual love, which ends very quickly. But true love, which is built on time and genuine inner relationships, never ends. It only grows. And also in spiritual life, there is a certain sentimental notion of God. And now I will begin to chant his holy name, Haribul, Haribul, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then, oh, something about Reiki caught my interest. Oh, something about astrology somehow took me away. Oh, I feel like I'm lacking in psychology. Oh, I will go develop myself. Something about Hare Krishna didn't give me results. And now I became a psychologist. I became an astrologer. I gained some practical knowledge. Why? Because this is not a genuine spiritual feeling. It is built on sentiments, mental sentiments, and therefore it has partial value. But we understand that as a rule, a person on a superficial level loses the true spiritual state because they are not ready to go deep, not ready to enter the world of sacrifice, not ready to enter the world of self-denial. And not only that, but we tend to expect something from our relationship with God. Well, if I just pray for you, will you give me something as a client? That is a certain exchange. But the Lord is ready to give much more, ready to give himself. But he is not ready to give himself up for the world's exploitation so that we play and manipulate. The Lord knows perfectly well the difference between love and manipulation. And we tend to manipulate in this world because manipulation is how we achieve our goals, our selfish desires, our selfish ideals. Prayer cannot be a part of manipulation, nor can it be a part of a superficial attitude or superficial faith. This is a manifestation of a deep feeling of the soul, a profound faith, and prayer must be unceasing. When a person begins to practice prayer, they initially practice a certain number of times using prayer beads, but gradually this engages their inner processing. And this prayer resonates within him as a profound, constant feeling of perfection. Thus, a person walks the path of prayer and perfection, and ultimately it leads to a constant inner dialogue with God. This is the lot of great saints. but it is also an opportunity for each of us. But we must take this feeling very seriously. Therefore, in our spiritual tradition, our spiritual teachers did not appreciate those pseudo-prayers who focused on prayer but did not show attention, the spirit of service, the pursuit of spiritual knowledge, or take any vows, and so on. In this regard, it can also be said that if a person is at a distance, for example, if you live very far from the devotees and do not have the opportunity to communicate closely with them, then you can dedicate more time to prayer, because listening, for instance, online, reading books, and praying will give you a certain inner strength. And on the other hand, when you start visiting the temple, you will see the living devotees, feel their life energy, and you will notice that your prayer has significantly increased in strength, because in Kali Yuga, collective prayer, known as Sankirtan, is very important. Some think that it is music. Some believe that prayer is about gathering together, singing mantras, and playing some cool, enjoyable music. I often have this Protestant mindset in America. We gathered together, had a great time, and played guitars. I remember once I was invited from San Francisco. At such a spiritual evening, there was great wine, wonderful people, beautiful women, and handsome men. Someone picked up a guitar and started singing a song to Govinda, while another person sat, embraced his girlfriend, and experienced shared bliss. No, there was no drunkenness or debauchery, but it was simply a kind of, soulful, spiritual state. I told them, guys, this is really great because I was with you. I said, well, you understand perfectly. Prayer is not music. Kirtan is the glorification of the Almighty. For example, you understand that there are songs for satisfying feelings and there are songs that lead to death. These are different songs, a little bit in different moods. And people are a bit like, they think, we came here to enjoy ourselves. But prayer is when we bring joy to the Lord. And this does not mean that we please the Lord while feeling disgusted, wanting to spit, to sing praises to this Dionysus, this Krishna. Then it is a misunderstanding of whom we are dealing with, who God is. For some materialists, singing praises may be perhaps repulsive, but it makes one work. A video has appeared in the news showing that the owner of the dumpling factory celebrated his birthday in a pharaoh costume while his employees carried him on a chariot. It was very funny to watch. Oh, it was really funny to watch, but you see, what else can the employees do? The master desires to be a pharaoh for at least some time, a pharaoh of dumpling. It is a very low-key holiday, but it clearly illustrates a person's sincere desires. Let me be a king at least once a year on my birthday. But in prayer, everything is the opposite. The Lord always occupies the primary position, while we occupy the position of a servant. Nevertheless, the Lord serves each of his true servants. Therefore, through prayer, through constant communication with God, through Sankirtan, collective and joint, we attain great goodness. Why? Because just like computers, where energy connects computers into one cluster, into one render, we, when we come together, glorify the Lord. But it is important in what mood we do this. So, is there at least one devotee among us? Is there a person among us who understands the essence of prayer, or have some neophytes gathered here to sing something? Often people think that it's great. We sing together, play the drums, and day after day we make some noise. But in essence, these people are still devoid of the sense of prayer, the understanding of prayer. Nevertheless, these are still some kind of childish steps. Children have their own unique perceptions of reality, but later, these perceptions will change. Therefore, friends, remember that prayer is an inner state, and there is also mental prayer. At first, it cleanses our mind, someone's consciousness. Then this prayer descends into our heart and it begins to spin like that very potter's wheel in the heart. This is already a high level of prayer. And then, as the Orthodox say, prayer becomes visual. That is, when we see the whole world in the vibrations of God, we see God everywhere. This is also the result of our prayer. And the highest state is when we establish personal relationship, personal connections with God. As we say, I want to communicate personally with my supervisor at work. I want to communicate personally with this person, with this blogger. I subscribe to you so that you respond to me personally. We desire personal relationships, and also in prayer, in the highest sense. At the highest level, the Lord appears to each person personally with the holy name of Hare Krishna Muhammad. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Garadhara, Shivas Rigur Bhakta Vrinda. This is Panchatattva. This is the Lord who, being one, became many. 5 tattvas, 5 great incarnations of God, and all of them came to save us. And Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. There are concepts such as Hare Krishna and Rama. As Guru Maharashvili said, Radha Karamana, the Lord, the source of love, and his feminine nature, his nature of love, is manifested in this holy name, and his nature of receiving love is also manifested, and the nature of his devotion is manifested. Therefore, the Lord, although one, has many different energies, many different forms, facets, like a single precious stone, with various facets. Through prayer, we grasp its facets, its depth, its perfection. Wishing you all the best. I hope this lecture has shared a little, just a tiny bit, about prayer with you. Prayer should be pure, without insults. We will discuss this in our other videos.